Thank you for taking the opportunity to watch this presentation on Samaritan Ministries, and let's get started. Real quickly, a couple disclaimers. One, I am not a Samaritan representative. They do know that I'm doing this, and I have their blessing. They just wanted me to clarify that I am not a representative of Samaritans. I don't get paid by Samaritans. I'm simply sharing my experience and the experience of close friends that are using Samaritans and love it. Secondly, Samaritan Ministries is not Samaritan's Purse. This is a separate ministry. They are not the same. Third, it is really on you to, after you hear this presentation, to do your own research, to look at your own medical needs and also your current healthcare situation as far as the kind of insurance you have and how well that works for you or doesn't, and then make a decision together as a family. So do your homework. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have. And Samaritans is wonderful to talk with on the phone. They will be happy to speak with you as well. Lastly, this really does work, and just want to share some stories of personal friends and even my own story. This is friends of ours that live here, the Caldwells. When they had their first child, they had traditional insurance, and they got kind of hung up on at the end of a deductible year, and got stuck, and they ended up having to pay $7,500 out of pocket for the birth of their first child. Then they switched to Samaritans. I told Wes about it, and he was hesitant at first just because it's different. It's not insurance. It's not what we're used to. But he made the switch, and then when they had their second child about 6 months ago, they literally paid zero money out of pocket. Everything was covered. In fact, they had money even before their child was born. They were ready to pay the hospital and doctors and all of that. This is the Wilkinsons. They have, I believe, 7 children now, and they've been members of Samaritans for 12 years. They are the reason that we switched over to Samaritans. They love Samaritan Ministries. All of their needs have been met through Samaritans and the members of Samaritans. Their biggest need that they had was when their son broke his femur. They had about $16,000 in medical bills. They paid zero out of pocket. Everything was covered by other brothers and sisters in the ministry. Oops, sorry. This is my wife and I. We're on the left there. We are the Cappuses. The couple on the right are the Forests. And Scott and Tracy, when they first adopted their first child, they had some medical needs that came up with an illness, and had about, I believe it was around $3,500 in medical bills that they ended up paying out of pocket. When they had adopted their second child, they were on Samaritans, and he had to go to an emergency room for sickness and breathing problems, things like that. And all of their expenses, which was about $1,500 out of pocket, were covered by the ministry. Our story is pretty neat. We've had 3 times that we've had to use Samaritans. The first was for an injury that Jenna sustained to her knee. Had about $1,500 in bills. Those were covered by the ministry. And then after that, Jenna had to have surgery, and this was a big test for us to see just how well this really works. And we ended up with about $27,000 in medical bills. After everything was said and done with, they called the hospital and negotiated our bill down significantly, and then we published our need, and we received all of our expenses were covered. We paid zero money out of pocket. We got checks from about 70 different families from across the United States with cards that they were praying for my wife. One lady wrote a poem, and really was just a special time during a significant health need that Jenna had needed to be taken care of, and just saw the family of God working together to help us with our medical expenses that we had. On the flip side of being able to send checks then to different families during the year has been special for us as well. In one instance, there was a couple that had a miscarriage, and we our monthly share was going to them, and so Jenna wrote her a card about our experience with miscarriages. We had 3 miscarriages between our 2 children, and just reached out to her and tried to encourage her, and she actually wrote back and then found Jenna on Facebook, and they connected there, and we were able to minister to her and encourage her. So I'm sure the question you're wondering is, how in the world does this work? And it sounds too good to be true, and you're right, it really does. But it does work, and I'll explain to you how. So on one side of it, the way it works is typically when you have insurance, you pay a monthly premium to a company. This is different. Every month you get a newsletter, not a bill, and on the back of the newsletter you have an assigned member, a family, an individual that you send your monthly share to. And so there's a brief explanation about what happened and what their need is and how we can be praying for them. And then we write a little card. Jenna writes a little card, puts our check in for the month, and you literally mail it to their home to meet their medical needs. And so we love the fact that we don't send money to a company, that we send money to other brothers and sisters to help meet their need for that month. On the flip side, if you have a medical need, this is how it works. Any medical need that you accrue bills for that is over $300 and meets the guidelines of the Ministry of needs that they cover, which you can read on their website, that becomes a publishable need. So let's say you get in a car accident and you end up having to go to the hospital and you end up with $15,000 in medical bills. As soon as that happens and you're able to you call Samaritan Ministries. They will immediately begin praying for you and beginning the process. They will walk you through the process of what you need to do. So after all of that is said and done with, you submit to the ministry an itemized list of all of your bills, all of the discounts that you received, because cash pay clients receive significant discounts, especially if you can pay by a certain time. So they will walk you through that. So for instance, when Jenna had her medical bills, they called the hospital, they negotiated the price down, and then the need gets published. So you fill out the paperwork, you send the bills into the ministry, and then they assign other members to send you checks for that month. And so, in the case of Jenna's surgery, we got checks from over 70 different families. The needs were met. We were able to make a payment. Now, sometimes you might have to pay some money up front. If you're having a surgery, the hospital might want you to put some money down. You may need to use a credit card. We did that for her surgery. We had to put a little bit of money on a credit card, knowing that we would be able to pay ourselves back. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is when you have just regular doctor visits and things like that, and it's going to be under $300, then you need to have money that you're saving every month to pay for those sorts of things. And so, we have our monthly share, and then I set aside about $140 a month that I put into a personal savings account that builds interest. It's a very small percentage, but it's some interest that we use. We happen to use Capital One 360, which is an online bank. And so any medical expenses that I have to pay out of pocket comes out of my savings account. So you need to keep that in mind. You have to be able to put money away for those incidences. It's good to have good relationship with your doctor, that they know your cash pay, they know about Samaritans and what you're doing, that your bills will be covered or that you're paying out of pocket, and they'll usually work with you. They'll usually discount you around 40%, sometimes more, if they know that they're getting money from you right up front and they don't have to file paperwork and all that stuff and wait for an insurance company to reimburse them. And so that's worked well for us. It's made us wise in our use of healthcare. We don't run to the doctor every time there's a little incident. We do a lot of home remedies. We do a lot of natural remedies, and trying to handle as much of that stuff as we can, and not have unnecessary costs for that month. So love how this works, and can personally say that in all 3 times that we've had bills accrue over $300, that the needs have been met. Even when we had something that we didn't think was covered, and later found out, they pursued us. We had a dialogue about something that Jenna was being seen for with our chiropractor, and they retroactively, after everything was said and done with, we didn't even know, they submitted our needs and got supplements covered, and also what the visits and the tests cost as well. And so one of the important things that you need to show when you submit an itemized bill is show what discounts you were given, because the discounts will apply to the first $300 of liability that you have to pay out of pocket. So that's how, with Jenna surgery and other things that I mentioned, why we didn't have to pay, and when I said we had zero money out of pocket, is because we had such significant discounts because we were cash pay that erased the $300 responsibility that we had, and we literally had all of our expenses covered by members of the ministry. So how much do the shares cost, and how does this work? Well, as far as administrative costs concerned that go to Samaritan Ministries to pay their staff, there's a one-time $200 membership fee when you join, and you'll see that on the application. And then 1 month out of 12, you actually send your monthly share to Samaritan Ministries instead of a family. And that's usually on the anniversary of your membership. So every year when you renew your membership with Samaritans, you'll send that monthly share to Samaritan Ministries instead of to a family, and it will tell you that on the newsletter. You will always know where to send your money based on the newsletter that you get every month from Samaritans. So here is the monthly share. If you're a single person, it's just one person paying, it's $180 a month that you send to a specific family or person. If you're two people, it's $360. Three or more is $405. So regardless of how many children, like the family I told you had 7 kids, they don't pay more money every time they have kids. Samaritan Ministries loves children, they love the family, and so there's not a penalty for having more kids. So 3 or more in a family is $405 a month, and then if there's a widowed or divorced person with children, it's $250. And the question is, does that ever change? And the answer is potentially that can increase. And the process that they do that by is if they have consecutive months where there's more medical needs than there is money coming in, then the board of directors will recommend that the monthly share be increased, and then it has to be voted on by the members. And so you'll get a ballot in the mail, and you can vote yay or nay on whether or not to increase. And there has to be a supermajority, which it's probably 75%. There's a supermajority that has to approve that increase. That has happened one time since 2011, where it did. But the ministry is expanding so rapidly that they're really, in fact, there was a couple months this summer where actually we paid less because there was more money coming in than there were needs, and so they discounted what we owed for that month. And so right now there's 47,000 households that participate in Samaritans, which is roughly about 150,000 people as of June 2015 are their numbers. And so it's the ministry itself is strong, it's healthy, and there's a good balance of money coming in that meets the needs for that month. Now, I actually go back. If there is more needs than there are, there's more needs than there are money than there is money coming in. They will prorate how much they can meet. So if they can only meet 90% of the need, then every member will get reimbursed for 90% of their cost. However, they'll also try and dip into the following month. So if the following month there's more money coming in that's available, they can retroactively apply that extra money to your need from the month before. Also, members are encouraged to give extra if they're able to. So if members know that only 90% of needs are met that month, individuals can write more on their check for that month than what they're assigned to in order to help make up for the difference that's there. So and you'll see that that does happen, and that this is a Christian ministry, and that there is a shared understanding that we are to love and care for one another. There is also discounted rates if you are a head of household 25 or younger. I think Samaritans is a great option for young people that are healthy. And so you can see the rates there. Single person is $140, two people's $280, 3 or more is $355, and then widowed or divorced with children is $200. And so you kind of get the idea there. I will encourage you to do research. If you have major pre-existing conditions, read their policy on pre-existing conditions. Type 1 diabetes is really their biggest sticking point. And if you have type 1 diabetes, I would recommend that you call Samaritans and you dialogue with them on the phone about how this will work for you. Also, if you have cancer previously, just because you get cancer, if you get cancer again, they won't necessarily view that as pre-existing if it's unrelated to the first cancer that you had. And then with other pre-existing conditions, if you go 12 months without if you go 12 months without symptoms and treatment, then your need becomes publishable. And that is the case for everything except cancer and heart issues. There's a 5-year waiting period on those. So again, do your homework on that, and if you have more questions, call Samaritans and they'll be happy to talk with you about that. When it comes to maternity, they handle things differently than traditional insurance. If you become a member and then the next month you get pregnant, they will cover all of your expenses. There's not a waiting period. If you're pregnant before you become a member, they will reimburse you for every month that you pay shares in. So if you're 2 months pregnant and then you have 7 months where you're paying in, they will reimburse you up to those 7 months of shares that you have paid in. All right. So what is covered? And I've already kind of covered this, but basically anything over $300. So you might have an instance where you go in, you're sick, and your initial visit is $75, but something is discovered and you have to have additional visits and additional tests, and it ends up being $1,000. It all of that adds up, and so it's $300 per need, not $300 per visit. So if you have one issue that you're dealing with and several visits to deal with that, all of those visits add up. Once you hit that $300 threshold, that's when you contact the ministry and you tell them what's going on, and they will walk you through the process of getting ready to publish your need. It will cover up to $250,000. And then there is an additional plan that you can do called Save to Share that will give you up to $1 million in coverage. There's no penalty. They don't raise your rate if you use it. They don't raise your rate based on your age. This works really, really well. And so the Save to Share program, you can read more about it online, but basically there's an amount that you are to save, and you just put it aside. You don't send it into the ministry. You hold on to that amount for your family. There's an annual amount that you save, and then if there is a Save to Share need, they'll contact you, and then you send that portion that you've saved to meet that need. And then that makes you eligible then if you have something catastrophic that happens and you need, you have $500,000 in medical bills and you're a part of Save to Share, then you're covered and you can participate, and the other Save to Share participants will send money then to meet that need. So what are the requirements? There are requirements for being a member, and basically they want to ensure that this is that members are trying to follow Christ and are trying to live a life that honors Him, and we're not sharing expenses for shenanigans that other people are participating in. And so you can see the guidelines there. They want regular church attendance, and you'll have to get a pastor or a leader in your church to sign your membership application, as well as if you have any needs and you submit a form for needs, a leader will have to sign, and then annually a leader will have to sign when you renew. You can see there, there's zero tolerance for tobacco use. They have changed that a bit. I think they now allow for like a celebratory cigar or something like that, but they really don't want members using tobacco at all. And then also either completely abstain from alcohol or only use alcohol in moderation, and then abstaining from sexual activity outside of traditional biblical marriage. And so those are the main stipulations for membership. All right, so that's pretty much how it works. Next steps would encourage you to go to SamaritanMinistries.org and browse around on their site, download their guidelines document, and read through that. You can also go to MySamaritanStory.org and watch some of their testimony videos on there. There's a slew of testimony videos. I would encourage you to listen to those, watch those, and hear the stories. Also, you can, if you're ready, download their application online and apply to join Samaritans. And the one way you can help me is if you'll list my name as the person who referred you to Samaritans. and they will give me a percentage of a discount to my monthly rate for 1 month, and that's just a way that you can help me and my family. Also, if you have friends who are a part of Samaritans and you want to bless them, you're certainly welcome to put their name on the application as well, and they'll get a discount for 1 month if you join and become a member. If you have any questions, reach me on Facebook, or if you're a personal friend, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'll be happy to help any way that I can. Thanks so much.